BrewTube, DJs here, back at you with yet another DJs BrewTube beer review. Damn, I'm ready for a beer, guys. Got my workout on. Been a long day at work, too. And you see I got the Sam Adams hat on tonight. So what are we going to review? Today we're going to review a historical beer. We're going to review a old new beer from Sam Adams, which is the new Albion Brewing Company's Ale, which is an American Pale Ale. Now, this is considered to be the granddaddy of all micro-brews. This beer started brewing in 1976, and it brewed to about 82, 83, when the brewery folded for an economic downturn and not being able to get funded, etc. Now, I've got some notes here on this just to make sure we get it right. A guy named Jack McAuliffe started this brewery, and he was in the Navy, and he'd been to Europe, and he modeled this after some European, Scottish, Irish, English ales that he had had, and said, man, I want a full-flavored beer, and I want to make that, and I want to market it, and sell it as something different, not to compete against the big breweries, but as something different and juxtaposed against those breweries. But what do we do about equipment? He made all the equipment himself out of 55-gallon steel drums, things of that sort. It was a gravity-fed system, a 3-level sort of system. And he actually lived and slept and ate above the brewery, and, you know, blood, sweat, and tears until this thing sadly folded. So Jim Koch of Sam Adams came to Jack and said, hey, you know what, I want to revive this beer. It's a piece of American history and craft brew history. Let's do it. Let's give you some money, support you, and get this beer going again. And Sam Adams is going to brew it and take the brand on. So I'm real jazzed to drink this. It's an American Pale Ale. My expectations aren't going to be that this is going to be humongous flavor, because when this beer was made, you have to consider the times. If we would have put it like one of today's DIPAs out there, or even an American Pale Ale, it would have been way too much for the beer palates of the time that only drank fizzy yellow stuff. And that's what beer was, only fizzy yellow stuff, nothing else. A beer like this didn't exist until this guy created it. The closest thing out there was Anchor Brewing, and that was still in their steam beer days, and there wasn't a whole lot of diversity even in their line. So basically this guy and Fritz Maytag were like the beginning, and this was the first microbrewer that started out from rough, gruff scratch. No brewery existed, nothing, just making beer out of his own two hands and ingredients. Because of that, this is a single hop beer. There's only Cascade hops in this, I believe. Yes, only Cascades. Why? Because that's all he could get at the time. So this one is 6% alcohol by volume, which was a really big beer back in the day, and it's 30 IBUs, which was probably pretty hoppy. So rotating serving on this one. Label's clearly dated like all Sam Adams beers. This one's good till July, so it's super fresh. Was just brewed at the time of filming here. I'm going to get it in the glass. Let's see what the history tastes like. Now, boom, lovely new Albinian cap here. Another interesting thing about this beer is that the yeast strain is the original yeast strain, and it was preserved by the University of California, and they're actually using the exact same yeast strain and everything. So that's pretty damn cool, man. So let's get history in a glass. Lots of smoke coming off the top of this one. Let's see what kind of head we can get and everything. Now it says to serve this in a lager glass and all that mess. I'm not serving in a lager glass tonight. Times have changed. I've got a better glass than they had back then. So we've got a golden yellow color, a little bit darker than fizzy yellow stuff piss water color, a little darker than that. Very, very clear beer. No hop haze on this at all. Slightly off-white head, really tight bubbles, and then rockiness at the top when you swirl it. No alcohol legs to speak of, but it instantly glass laces. We've got 2 fingers of that head, and if I put it closer to you, you can see it's a lovely beer. It's perfectly clear. When you look at it, sort of reminds me of some European lagers when you look at it. It's got that lager look. So let's get a nose on it and see what we've got going on. Mildly hoppy. It's an ale, but it smells a lot like a lager beer. Now, taking this historically, that would be what I would assume, because people are going to expect this. It's very floral hoppy. Not a whole lot going on those. There's bready sweetness in the malt, a touch of honey smell, sort of. Not a very complex nose on the beer, and a mild floral hops, not herbal or anything like that, but a floral, bright, sort of sweet hop smell. So let's get a taste on it. Sorry for the pause there. I had to take it all in. It's not a super complex beer. Really easy drinking. That single hop isn't a very big single hop. It's not dry hopped and overloaded like they do with single hop beers today. Taking in historical perspective, this may back in the day have been considered a bitter beer. To me, this reminds me of some of the macro lagers I've had in Mexico in some ways. This is a real lagery tasting ale. Not in a bad way, but it's a very effervescent in the mouth. Thin medium, not medium thin, thin medium mouthfeel. A little bit watery. It goes down super fast, as you can see. We're exhibiting awesome glass lacing on this. It's a quite tasty beer. What this tastes like a lot to me is Sapporo Reserve, but it's a little more hoppy, like floral hoppy. Bitterness it's 30 IBUs, but it's not really bitter at all. I wouldn't call this an American Pale Ale. Now, back in the day, this wasn't what an American Pale Ale was, because one didn't exist. And this was probably risque tasting and hoppy tasting, but for today's expectation of what an American Pale Ale is, this beer is not that. Okay, American Pale Ales today are what India Pale Ales were in the early 90s. Okay, I mean, we all know that, how much bigger and more flavorful the beers are. But that said, to me, this is a lot like an all-grain lager, kind of like Sapporo Reserve. That reminds me of beers that I've had the most. It tastes the most like Sapporo Reserve, which is an all-barley beer, which this is as well. And they only use one hop in that as well, which I'm not sure which one it is. But all in all, I think it's a pretty solid beer. There are some scores out on this, what the other guys are giving it. Rate Beer is giving it a 61, and Beer Advocate's giving it a 79. I think it's a better beer than that. Considering its historical significance, the story behind the beer, the fact that the bottle's dated, and all of that, and the fact that it's a really quality tasting beer, I'm going to give it a B. Sort of like maybe like at that 84 level, a solid B. It's not a B plus or A beer, but it is a really tasty beer, and I'm really happy that Sam Koch took the time, the money, the investment, and everything to care enough about this beer to bring it back and bring it to us. Because if not, you know what? If you don't know where your roots are, you don't know where you're going, guys. So you may taste this and say, "Oh, DJ, it's not that big a flavor. It's not really great." But you got to really take into consideration what this beer is and really the significance of it. And you know what? I think it's a mighty fine brew for what it is. So, you know what, guys? If you've had this one, let me know. If you're going to have it, whatever, you want to rate, comment, let me know. If there's another beer you want me to review, tell me that too. So, till the next time, remember what I say, guys. Think globally, drink locally, support the craft beer movement. Let's keep this thing growing. And you know what? Let's keep more of these guys like Jack McAuliffe coming out of the woodworks and making that next horizon on the beer industry. Until the next time, guys, thanks a million for watching. And that's a big peace out.